And we have, spawning up in the top right, it is the finisher, the Night King from NC Sports. He's Serral.
And down here in the bottom left-hand side of the map, our purple Terran player from TeamLiquid. He is Clem.
All right, first things first. Do you think we'll see any proxy 2 racks out of Clem? Because he is a player that never does that. But I've seen him do it like once in the series as a whole.
That's a really interesting question. I mean, I'm leaning toward no, and I'll tell you why. So I think if Clem, even though Clem has actually, funny enough, not been winning versus Serral in the last couple of times they face off against each other, you know, Home Story Cup, I think they played some Alpha X show matches and stuff, or some series and everything. He has been losing to Serral, so my one condition of where I could have seen it in like a game 2 or a game 3 would have been if he's not feeling confident versus Serral. But I actually, despite the fact that Clem hasn't really been winning his most recent matches, I actually have a lot of confidence that Clem will still feel overall good, and he'll still feel better about like a macro game versus Serral than he will like proxy raxing. So I'm not feeling it, Dave. I'm not feeling it.
Yeah, no, and I think Clem is one of those players that is supremely confident in his play. And Serral, though, he is on alert for this. He knows that the fact that you don't do something ever means that it's the danger of you doing it is that much higher. And he doesn't even send his first Overlord across the map. He looks everywhere on his side of the map, and he's going to be keeping these Overlords mostly at home. I think maybe he rotates the second one around and goes across the map. But we're seeing a reactor first out of Clem. This is pretty nice because, you know, as a point, you pretty much have to build 4 Zerglings. At minimum, sometimes you even build 6. And especially against a player like Clem, if you try and get greedy and cut those Zerglings and be like, well, I'm not going to build them till I see the Reaper, you're going to probably end up losing multiple drones, and you're going to have a really, really bad start to your game. So the fact that it's reactor first, there's no Reaper at all, this is nice for Clem.
Yeah, everything is actually going pretty well for Clem over here. Now, Clem is going to be sending out those early Marines, going Overlord hunting, and this is actually going to be really nice for 2 reasons. If he identifies the Overlord position, oh my god, he is a split second too fast for his own good and misses the Overlord by, I feel like a quarter of a second or something there, just barely outside of his vision range. But, well, I mean, the Marines are still at least going to be able to push back the Ling, secure the natural and stuff, so it's not the end of the world there, but it would have been nice to be able to push back that Overlord.
Yeah, that would have been really, really advantageous. Unfortunately, no option there, but that's kind of the good thing about doing what Serral did right here, which is being a little bit less predictable with his Overlord scout pattern. It means that you can't just be like, oh, okay, well, at 152, the Overlord's going to be right here. Serral, he was looking around everywhere, and you can't really predict that, so it's kind of nice. Oh, Hellions and a Medevac coming in.
And an Armory.
This is going to be Hellbats.
All right, well, I think we've seen this. This is a tale as old as time. Terran player goes for Hellions with a Medevac, gets some Hellbats up. Zerg player tries to use their Queens to target fire down the Medevac and reduce the healing. You got to spread out their units to make sure that they aren't just all getting massacred by the splash damage. But we'll see how well it's literally, this is just one of those things that comes down to control and scouting. And when do you think Serral actually knows about this? I mean, he's making some more Queens. He's making some more Lings right now.
I think he's got an inkling. He saw the Medevac. Yeah, and he's bunching his Queens all up together. He's going to be pretty prepared. Starts with the Baneling Nest. Obviously, that won't be done for this. But if there's a continued follow-up, maybe it could be come in handy later. Hellbats are going to morph on in. The Medevac is being nicely placed in the back. It's pretty safe right now. One Queen does go down, though. That's really big. And another one just barely getting transfused. So far, though, this is looking very scary for Serral. On the other side of the map, we do have a little Link counterattack getting 3 SCVs. That's quite nice. Oh, and the Medevac will get a little bit exposed. The drone line, though, is starting to be in peril.
Couple of drones are going down, like you were saying. The Hellbat's also getting into a very abusive position against these Lings, but actually the Hellbat's attacking the Queens instead of the Lings, gives the Lings the surface area they need to clean that all up. 5 workers killed, I mean, it's pretty decent damage alongside some of the queen kills and everything, but Clem does end up losing everything, including the medevac there. So it is a costly trade, and this is an investment for Clem.
It was certainly a big investment, and that counterattack was quite nice from Serral. Getting 3 SCVs may not seem like much, but considering the fact that Serral committed a lot to his defense and did still lose some drones, it's pretty important that he was able to get that counterattack damage. Coming out of this, I'm actually not sure who I would put as ahead. Normally, I would say Serral by a lot, but his drone count is nowhere near where it wants to be, and his queens weren't injecting during that whole thing. So it's not like he had some big 15 drone swell after this. This is not the easiest situation, and it sucks because he really can't get anything done with his army supply advantage that he has. So that supply, it's a little bit of a lie right now. This is a situation where the soup does lie.
All right. I mean, yeah, that is an interesting spot and a good call out of just not having necessarily the larva with those queens not injecting. So definitely seeing that Serral is respecting the heck out of the pressures that Clem can do. And, well, Clem does still have some ability to put on some forms of pressure. It's not like he doesn't have any Hellions anymore, so you can still poke forward, try and pick off some creep tumors here and there. He still has that Liberator alive, which can also try and go for a couple of drone pickoffs after, he deals with the Overlord that's actually blocking the third base for a little bit. That actually is a supply block for Serral as well. Ooh.
Yeah, and his Overlords were a little bit late to get made. I think he was going to lose that Overlord anyways, because obviously the Liberator can chase it down everywhere, even if it takes 7 million years to kill it off. But getting that creep drop is so nice. Like, that delays the expansion, but it also delays the orbital command for like 35 seconds there. That's a really great play from Serral, and it's something we don't see enough of from Zerg players. Speaking of great plays, that scouting Ling, seeing the first 2 medevacs is so big.
I'm going to try and time this up to hit after the Liberator starts pulling some of those queens over to the left-hand side, pulling some of the attention away for Serral. Clem's so good at resieging up those Liberators and trying to get the maximum value from them, but he's going to be trying to focus his attention on this main army over here. Liberator is going to end up falling. Bailing's in the back line behind the queens, not able to get to the front quite quickly enough. Hellbat's going to try and tank the front waves of these Lings, and these Bailings are doing a fantastic job of it so far.
That they are, and the medevacs are going to be able to pick up pretty much every Marine. Clem is so good to his units. He will always keep them alive. We do see a nice creep tumor in the main being able to spot this drop coming on in, but it doesn't prevent it from actually getting down. Spore Crawler also going to get targeted fire down. That's going to make the follow-up defense a little bit more annoying unless he rebuilds the Spore. It will be Hydraling Bane coming on out of this for Serral. And as we head on into the mid-game, it does look like Serral has been able to get his drone count up to a point that he wants, and he is looking very, very comfortable in this game. A little bit of creep clear, but I'm really starting to like Serral's position a lot.
Yeah, I love the predictive movement there from Serral as well. Already had units moving to the left-hand side before Clem even stepped onto creep. Was super ready for this. Goes for the sensor tower. Is going to be able to clean that up. Actually has a fairly scary number of Lings and Banelings on this left-hand side, but it looks like Clem has enough that Serral doesn't feel comfortable taking engagement off the creep. And Serral, even though, yes, the drop got over to his main base, picked up that Spore Call and everything, Serral has been doing an overall pretty damn good job of keeping this entire harassment force away from his mineral line. It really feels like Serral's been able to do a good job keeping Clem away from being able to do actual economic damage this whole game.
Yeah, and some really great queen control right there, able to pull them back as they got a little bit bruised up. Whenever queens are on their own, it's always a little bit dicey as to whether they'll be able to hold their own, but in that case, good transfuses, good positioning, good micro. Clem not able to break through, and now Serral has a little bit more to stiffen that army. He did put some Lings on patrol in the main base, who's going to be able to deal with this. We do see the attack on the left side, trying to clear a little bit of creep. This is really the only point where creep isn't super far out on the map for Serral. Clem, though, he's going to try and take the engagement right here. Serral, he loses a few Banes at the front. He's still got to be careful. He's got a massive worker lead, but his army supply is pretty even.
Yeah, this could definitely get dangerous very, very quickly if the engagement even goes a little bit sour. But Clem pulls out from that left-hand side, moves around, rotates starts picking out some additional creep tumors, and frankly, I will say the creep has receded a lot here. Clem has been doing a great job of cleaning up a lot of that creep store. There's a lot of active creep tumors over here that Clem is not going to have the time to pick off because that Baneling Hydra Force is narrowing the gap between him and the Medivacs. Oh, one of the full Medivacs ends up falling over there. That's definitely going to hurt, but a couple of drones going down. It looks like maybe a Widowmine or something doing some damage, maybe in the top left-hand side. But yeah, some good damage being done here, at least by Clem, but he's still trying to get to that max out point during all this.
That he is. Serral will be able to force that double medevac drop back out of the main base. I think at this point okay, no, Serral is going to add on a hive. He's getting into a lurker den as well. I was going to say, maybe you start really trying to punish the Terran player and push up against the fourth base. Couple of Baneleys being used to take down those drops. Not exactly what you want to see, but Clem is pretty far on creep. He's got to be a little bit careful right now.
It's funny because he's far on creep, but then he's going to be pushing forward off of creep because the creep was just in that little center area.
Oh, this
so
round.
He's going to be retreating back onto creep as he tries to get out of the way of the Banelings. A decent number of those units go down with a Widowmine connection also really solid there.
That was a massive Widowmine connection. There's like 25 dead Zerg units on the map right there. Just a big splash of corpses. The thing is, this is still just trading right now, and Serral's economy is so much better than Clem's, and even though he's gotten little bits of chip damage, Clem still doesn't have a phenomenal setup in this game. He's just now starting to add on Ghost. His 3-3 is not as quick as I would have liked to have seen, but he's really trying to get something done off of a relatively low eco for this point in the game. Usually you're up at like 75, 80 workers as the Terran. In this case, that is not the case. We also don't have full gas saturation. He's only on 6 gases.
Yeah, I mean, this game to me has really felt like Clem has been doing a great job with a lot of the pressure, and he's been cleaning up the creep, which is what actually makes this game and a lot of the engagements look not too bad for Clem, but he's never actually able to push it further forward, right? He's never able to make that final little leap over to Serral's bases, to his drone lines, to his hatcheries that I feel like a lot of Terran players want to be able to get to, right? You normally are cleaning up the creep so that you can take engagements by the hatchery and start sniping them off or taking out some of your opponent's economy during all this. And Clem, it feels like he's been making all these pressures, but just barely coming shy of the damage I think he really wants. So it's kind of like he's been building up momentum, but he hasn't actually been able to seize any like actual greater value from the momentum just yet.
Yeah, certainly not. And we're going to be seeing a big attack coming in on the fourth base. Blinding Cloud on the planetary means no target fire on the Banelings, and we're going to see 2 command centers fall right there. Very nicely done. Viper does get sniped down, and a couple of units will get traded out on the retreat, but Serral can absolutely afford this right now. Very nice pick up on that base, and I think Clem rebuilds the command center on location. His economy is going to be really, really stunted for the next little bit. He needs to get some big damage done. But Serral's already got a ton more Banes being produced.
Yeah, I mean, it's Serral not on creep right now, trying to chase against a lot of these units, but he actually snipes off a lot of the ghosts over there. There's a lot of Marines still left over, and look at how many more Banelings are already there. Even without creep, you can see that Serral is just starting to flood out too many units for Clem to handle. Clem is going to have to pick up and evacuate, but Clem, like you said, he lost an important base there. He was basically on 4 bases, brought down to 3 for a little bit as he's trying to rebuild his command center. Serral's had 6 bases during this whole time. Yeah, cool, 10 workers killed, that's great. But it's still almost Serral doubling the base count of Clem.
Yeah, and taking down that base again is huge. Burrowed Baneley's trying to get, trying to burrow up and be sneaky there, but Clem, with that youngster eyesight, able to find those. Still, now it's something that he has to worry about. And the number of things that he has to worry about in this game is continuing to mount. We're going to be keeping our eyes peeled for some potential Burrow play. Speaking of which, Burrowed Infester. He's getting the Neural Parasite. He wants to go for the big Neural Parasite Ghost EMP move right here. And look at this. He uses the Burrowed Infester to find the Burrowed Widowmines as well. Very nice move out of Serral.
Brilliant moves there, and Serral has his big force over here to once again deny the 4th base. And that command center is just ignoring everything because Serral has his eye on the prize here on the army. He knows if he takes out the army one more time, that's going to be it. And Serral takes the first game. Honestly, Steadfast, I don't want to say it was dominating because I think Clem was getting some nice punches, some like jabs in there, but it's kind of like I would equivalent it to Clem getting jabs in on Serral, but he never got like the right straight in. He never got the like the hook in. He never got the power punches in on Serral. It was a lot of jabs, and Serral was the one that ultimately was able to actually get the big hits off on Clem.
Yeah, I feel like it was like jabs to, go with your analogy. And he was up against a UFC fighter that like put him in a guillotine. And it's like, well, good luck. Yeah, it's like, keep hitting me. Like you're doing real damage here, son. And he's like, does this matter for points? Like, I don't know. And he's like, Clem's like unconscious on the floor. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely rough. I feel like game number two, man, Steadfast. I feel like after that first game, I don't want to say it was so bad that I think like, oh man, I wonder if Clem's gonna proxy racks or something. But I do think that was a little bit of a rougher game. I do kind of wonder going back to maybe how the game opened up. We had like the Hellbat attack and stuff. Looking back at it, do you still feel like it ended up being a pretty even spot and Sarah was able to kind of garner advantages after things were evened up from that initial attack? Or do you feel like things still actually ended up leaning a little bit more towards Serral and he's able to like capitalize on an advantage there?
I think Serral was able to do a really good job of capitalizing on the fact that he didn't need to build army units for a really
Yeah.
long time, and it felt like there was no follow up from Clem for quite a long time as well. I do want to point out, by the way, the it was a very funny move with that infestor right at the end because neural parasite we could see on the production tab was like 5 or 10 seconds away, or even 15 seconds away from finishing, and he tried to go for the unburrow, and it just instantly got annihilated. It was just very funny to me.
As they do, unfortunately, investors one day they will have the survivability they need, but not today. Up here in the top right hand side of the map, though, we have our yellow Zerg player sitting up 1-0 from Team Ents. He is Serral.
And his opponent spawning down on the bottom left. For Team Liquid, the Frenchman, it is Clem. Yeah, it was a pretty good game, I would say, out of Serral there. He's pretty good at their StarCraft.
I actually also want to say it felt like a good game from Clem too. It just felt like Serral was so on top of everything. It really did feel like the kind of game that put a lot of other Zerg players in that position. And I kind of feel like Clem starts making more, like getting bigger advantages off of some of those little attacks there, and those little pressures and stuff that are cleaning up all the creep spread really does start to add up and allows him to make a big push in, start sniping off some of the bases, taking better engagements and stuff. But man, Serral did a great job in that last game, just still managing to take great fights, despite the fact that it felt like he was constantly losing ground versus all the constant harassment on multiple angles.
Yeah, and something that he did that was really, really great that we didn't point out was Serral was constantly respreading the creep. I mean, I know it's kind of a given, but it's not easy to do against a player that is as fast as Clem, that is constantly keeping you on your toes. Like, Clem was, he didn't really get rolling, but there was still multiple times where he was hitting in 2 places, 3 places at once. And it's not easy to deal with, but I really do feel as though Clem kind of committed to a mid-game, getting a lot done in the mid-game, and he wasn't able to do it. Would you see Indy right there highlighting that, yes, there's just a little bit of vision of the creep is all that he needs, and he's like, yeah, this is fine. Also, though, we are going to see Clem going back to basics. He does actually open up with a Reaper this time, and he's going to try and get something done.
Yep. Not going to go for that reactor marine opening, especially as ISC also didn't quite get the overload snipe off he was hoping for in that last game and everything. So Reaper will try and get a little bit of damage done, like you said, but the Queen's popping out means that this is going to be a lot harder to get too much more done. He's going to spot out the third base and confirm everything's looking standard, solid, and normal here. And I guess the real question is going to be what's kind of the follow-up here. Is he going to open up with like a 1-1-1 setup and go into like Hellion Banshee? Is he going to open up with like a Liberator again? Liberator, actually, last game, I also note, I feel like we usually pride Clem on his Liberator control. Liberator, I feel like the last game didn't quite get as much damage done, or it actually, you know what, I won't even phrase it that way because you know it's Serral, right? It's not always supposed to get a lot of damage done. The Liberator didn't survive as long as I feel like Clem's average Liberator survival time was.
Yeah, it certainly did get taken down pretty quickly, all things considered. It's always tough, you know, like even if Clem at this point is pretty used to playing on the big stage, it can still have an effect. We are going to see the Lings actually slipping on in. Hellion, oh, okay, we'll turn around. Oh, he gets the Mule. He's trying to repair. No, oh no, no,
God.
He was just pulling it to keep it alive. Saving that Mule is very big, but a beautiful scout in the main base. This is still a success for Serral.
Yeah, I mean, confirms mostly it's like the tech lab add-on setup there for all those buildings, right? That's going to be a nice little reveal of kind of what he's up against there. So seeing that there's no add-on the starport, you probably are not worrying about any banshees or anything now. So maybe you can save a little bit on sport crawlers and stuff. Although with that Liberator coming out, maybe you do want a sport crawler or two. We'll see.
Yeah, it's always nice to have that little bit of extra buffer for the defense. He knows that he's going to have to deal with things pretty effectively here. Having seen the third command center, you can't let this get out of hand. Really, any damage it's a big problem, and you know, overcommitting to defense isn't something you want to do either. So for the first little bit, he's just going to try and split his queens as best as possible. We are seeing once again a quick Baneling nest and layer, so it's going to be most likely very quick Baneling speed, and he's not worried about trying to get greedy and get ahead. He's saying, I don't want you to be able to run away with the game. Oh, great queen positioning right here.
Oh. I'm exactly just that. I am admiring Serral's queen positioning and how he's zoning out all these units. He's got these queens on the north side that have been zoning out one of the avenues for all these Hellions and everything to run by, but the queens on the south side I feel like have been doing such a great job moving back and forth because they have a lot more ground to cover. But then also he just has like the single queen in the main base help deal with the Liberator. These queens looking a little bit more vulnerable. One of those queens getting low. And especially since they've been throwing out additional creep tumors. They don't have a ton of energy for transfuse, but those queens stay alive. Another transfuse comes on out. Nice job.
Yeah, just a textbook play out of Serral. Like, this is, I say textbook like it's easy to do, to have your queens multiple locations juggling the Hellions. But, you know, for Serral, this is textbook. And that just goes to show what we expect from the best players of the world. Like, we really do hold them to a high standard.
Yeah, it's not that Serral's just following the textbook. It's like if you were to make a textbook, you would use Serral as the example. All right, that's the way that I write that as being impressive. Is that it's not Serral copying the textbook. It is Serral being the textbook. He is the example people study for.
Yeah, and as he should be. You know, like he is incredibly good at this. +1 Carapace was just a little bit delayed with the upgrades. Of course, we do see that because Serral didn't prioritize his upgrades, there is going to be a pretty significant timing with 1-1. Something important to note, Clem has forgotten his combat shields. That is a huge oversight right there and can really have a massive impact on the game. In my opinion, I think that's I think it's a more important upgrade setup than 1-1. Obviously, it's very important to have your 1-1 timing so that 2-2 isn't late, your 3-3 isn't late. But in terms of this particular fight, missing combat shields is really big.
Yeah, that could actually be game deciding. This could actually be one of the reasons why Clem may not end up succeeding in this game, but we'll see. He's going to be taking a fight somewhat on creep. Hellbat's leading the charge against the Queens, and a couple of these Marines are going to end up falling to the Lings and the Banelings. He gets forced back pretty quickly, and Serral still has a lot more Banelings on the way. He's got his own 1-1 upgrades on the way, starting up tons of his other tech. Those Hydra is going to have the Hydra speed soon. Serral taking another base. It really does feel like Clem was not able to make a whole lot happen with that little attack. And even though he's coming forward, I mean, this looks like a pretty paltry force now. So I just don't know what Clem's going to do to actually get in Serral's way, as Serral just gets everything he wants behind this.
Yeah, it feels like any potential to kind of snowball and gain an advantage there has kind of been missed out. We still don't see combat shields, by the way. It still has not started. This is getting past the point of like, you're like, haha, okay, it was just one push, it's no biggie. Clem, you there, buddy? Clem, we started getting real nervous about this. This This is a really big problem if he doesn't notice very soon.
This is going to be horrific. Whoa! Okay, well, that was also not the greatest way for things to play out there with those units for Clem. Serral is going to be feeling so confident about this right now. I mean, he now knows, okay, there's one force over on the left-hand side, another force moving into the bottom right-hand side. But Serral still has a couple of Banelings morphing in over here. He's got some Banelings ready. Creep spread is going very far forward this game compared to the last game, and Clem has not even actually got the unit count to start sniping off the creep tumors here. There's a nice little cleanup and push back there for Serral on the bottom right. I just feel like everything is still going so far in Serral's direction. Although, you know, 2-2 and stuff is on the way, and it's actually getting it's a lot further ahead there for Clem. So maybe he can make some kind of time happen here with 2-2 and combat shields, because he did finally notice combat shields was missing.
It's a pretty big deal. It's funny. It looks like it's meant to time out with 2-2. Obviously, we know that it's not, but it's just funny the way that it looks out. Looks here. Serral, another nice little cleanup. Serral did forget his +2 carapace for a little bit, so that's a bit of a problem. But it's not too big of a deal. Now, we got to mention something as well. Inside and out, very, very short map. Data C, very much in the other direction. I've already seen quite a few very long macro games on this map. The watchtower makes it so that holding certain bases is very difficult to attack into them, and it's very difficult to attack into a sieged position particularly. You can kind of trade around the sides of the map, the top right, bottom left. So if this settles down even a little bit more, we could see a very, very long map. Oh, that's a big Widow Mine. 10 SCVs do still go down to the Banelings. So not all bad for Serral, but that was a very nice Widow Mine defensively.
Yeah, definitely a nice job there. Well, we're going to end up seeing a Burrow halfway done. Serral just kind of getting into his late game groove of things. Adrenal glands on the way. Look at that Ling and Baneling force of 18 more Banelings morphing on in. And still, again, so much creep spread to work with. This is one of the big lifebloods for Zerg players when they're dealing with late game pushes. So yeah, 2-2's finished up. Combat shield's finally done. Ghosts on the way. But Clem has to actually break through a lot of ground if he wants to go for a big push out. That's part of the reason why it feels like mostly Clem has just been relying on small forces to try and do bits of harassment, because I think it's going to be pretty difficult for him to actually break through all of this creep spread right now. I think that Clem is just trying to play for a hyper late game at this point.
Yeah, and I think that's the right call. I think that's the right call in this map. The problem is, because the creep has been so advanced, it actually blocks the 5th base, but holding the phone, we've got an engagement coming on forward. Tanks were not sieged right away. We will see with the Planetary Fortress and some good splitting from Clem. He's able to get back and, you know, keep from being overrun, but this was still okay trades for Serral. I think he's going to be fine with the situation. We've got a 3K lead in terms of resources lost at the moment, which is pretty small for a TVZ at this stage. Like, that's something that Serral's going to be totally fine with.
Yeah, I totally agree. And another big factor here is that, okay, there is a Nidus Swarm going up inside the main base, it looks like, of Clem. We're going to see if he notices that anytime soon. He doesn't seem to have too much of a reaction, but actually there's a siege tank there. He is prepared. Thanks to that picture we can see Nidus Swarm does go down. Well handled there by Clem. But yeah, all of Clem's attention is just focused on trying to secure this base right now. That is where everything is going here for Clem, and I'm a little worried for him that if he can't secure this base, Serral's just going to be taking the rest of the map during all this.
Yeah, and it's a really big problem. That this base gives you a lot of positioning right here. We can see that Serral sets up. He really wants to take down this base right now. A couple of Vipers are going to join up. The Ghosts are there with a lot of energy, but they're not necessarily prepared. It's going to be a Parasitic Bomb on a medevac right here, and a Blinding Cloud coming on in. The Lings and Banes will flood forward. They're going to be able to swamp these tanks, but I think there's just enough bio. That one tank in that corner has been so big, but the base goes down, and that is the big deal right there. Oh, and now there is a Nidus Worm in the natural. Uh-oh. Please
Nothing unloading.
Please unload. Oh, God.
4 Lings. Let's go. If they find the siege tank, actually, and that actually might kill off.
Yeah, there's like nothing here for Clem.
Oh boy, that yeah, that's unfortunate. 2 Siege Shanks for like 8 of those Lings and that Nidus Storm that just kind of went up.
Lame.
Even has 2 Burrowed Lings just to provide additional vision later on. Oh, that's gonna be so annoying.
That is going to be very, very frustrating. Now, it is important to note, oh, that Contaminate on the +3 weapons. Very, very nice. Wait, does he have +3 armor? No, he never started +3 armor. That's a big problem. Meanwhile, engagement coming in on the bottom side. We're going to see Serral trying to bust this base again. He doesn't have a lot of Hydras, but he's focusing on the army right now. Very nice Blinding Cloud, catching a couple of those tanks. And another Parasitic Bomb, but a good split from Clem will save the medevacs for the most part. Nice last-second lift. How many tanks on that left side? Or how many kills does that tank on the left side have? 46 kills. 40. That tank is the MVP. If Clem wins this game, it's because of that tank. Oh, speaking of tanks, though, nice Nidus Worm placement.
Yeah, that is in fact still melee range, so the tank cannot attack that. One Marine does not have the damage output to deal with that, and well, this is actually going to be really, really annoying to clean up. Adrenal Gland Lings, man, do not take them lightly.
No, if you ignore Adrenal Gland Lings, you just won't have a base for very long. Nice multi-prong coming in from Serral. While Clem is distracted, Clem barely pulling back in time. But that means the base is once again under duress, and it is going to go down. Serral. Oh, the Baling Mines! And just like that, Serral takes the 2-0.